Hi, this is Nahid, and welcome to the Improving Stressful Relationships series. I developed this series in April of 2020, while most of our world was sheltering at home during the coronavirus pandemic. I had friends and clients sharing their frustrations at petty outbursts happening in families cooped up at home together, fears of not making it financially, anguish about sick relatives who they couldn't visit, and worry about awkward and confusing communication with work teams. The concepts we'll be talking about in this program can be applied anywhere, anytime, in any type of relationship, but I thought they'd be especially relevant now. So thanks for joining, and let's begin. Often, when there's a crisis or a short period of high stress, people pull together, and going through hard times can actually bring us closer. This happens on work teams when people pull together to get something done. It happens in families during a tough time. And it happens in close friendships when we realize we have each other's backs, even when things aren't running smoothly. But the problem is that level of pulling together can only be sustained for a short period of time. Stress is draining, and when we run out of reserves, the people who suffer the most are those around us. That's why we hurt the ones we care about most, by snapping at each other or building resentment when we aren't feeling appreciated or valued. In this program, we're going to use the acronym LOVING to describe an approach and a set of tools you can use to improve all your relationships. And we'll go through lots of practical examples to help you customize the approach to your specific situation. Here's what LOVING stands for. L stands for lower your stress. This is an important first step because emotions are infectious. So whatever you're feeling will actually transfer to those around you. During the course, we'll talk about different ways to lower your stress before engaging, depending on the situation you find yourself in. O stands for own your part. Usually, when we're frustrated, our focus is on what other people are doing and how what they're doing is affecting us. It seems like those other people are the cause of our frustration, but that's not actually true. I'm going to show you a few different models that explain how we get triggered, why we react, and how to calm things down as we go through the course. V stands for verify their perspective. It starts with listening because you'll never be heard by others unless you're open to understanding their point of view first. I stands for interactions, a series of conversations that you'll have over time, which actually takes the pressure off you having to communicate perfectly in any one of them. N stands for needs. You have to get your needs met in order to have a strong and fulfilling relationship. And that means having strong boundaries and training others not to cross them, which we'll teach you how to do. And finally, G stands for grow. As you increase your self-awareness, learn how to communicate more effectively, and build your confidence, you'll notice that all of your relationships are changing for the better. And that's what we want for you. So let's go through this step by step. Lowering your stress is easier said than done, especially when the relationships you're dealing with are stressful in themselves and you don't know how to change them. But the important thing to understand is that if you notice yourself reacting to someone, even if it's an internal reaction, use that as a signal to step back immediately. If you're able to get some space to think, that should be your first step. Taking your anger or any other emotion out on someone else while you're interacting with them is going to add fuel to the fire. You may think that only yelling has a negative impact, but maybe withdrawing and sulking, or cutting someone off, or even appeasing them to make them happy will help. But in fact, all of those behaviors make the situation worse. Your best bet as soon as you notice your stress is to recognize that letting it out in that moment on another person might feel good in the moment, but it'll make things worse in the long run. So the first thing to do is get yourself into a neutral place emotionally if you can, and then say something like, I'm feeling pretty stressed right now and I need some time to process this. Can we talk about it later tonight? If you can't leave the situation in the moment, then you have to compartmentalize. So if you're on the job or with small children, it helps to push the stress down and promise yourself you'll process it later. But you have to process it as soon as you can. You can't just keep pushing it down. And you also can't just keep pushing people off, or eventually they'll stop giving you space to process. You have to commit to circling back to deal with your thoughts and feelings and having a conversation. As soon as you can get some space, there are many things you can do to lower your stress, and each person is different. I usually recommend a combination of movement, which could be exercise, yoga, even drumming, being in or near nature, and processing your thoughts. If you're an extrovert, maybe you have a friend to vent to. If you're an introvert, maybe you want to just sit and think or write in a journal. Part of this thinking is getting some internal clarity on what's going on inside you, which brings us to O. O stands for Own Your Part and is actually the key component to personal growth and improved relationships. Owning your part doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means understanding that your emotions and your assumptions play into the dynamic that's happening, and that you may have more control over the situation than you think. Most of the tools that we discuss in this program will increase your awareness around your triggers, your emotions, and your self-talk, and how all of these contribute to the dynamics in your relationships. The great news is that as you learn more about your part, you'll find a stronger sense of power in your relationships. We all know that we can't control other people, but we can influence their behavior once we have the tools. Most of us are so focused on complaining about or trying to change someone else's behavior that we completely skip over the critical step of understanding what's driving it. However, you'll have a very difficult time changing the dynamics in your relationship until you understand things from the perspective of the other person. Whether it's children misbehaving, a boss ignoring you, or the neighbors being loud or inconsiderate, stepping into their shoes and even just imagining what's going on in their heads will get you grounded and help you strategize on your approach. If at all possible, ask them questions to understand their perspective. Obviously, this isn't something you can effectively do when you're angry, so wait until you've lowered your stress and are feeling curious enough to be genuine. I work with people in conflict all the time, and once they've gone through the work of seeing things from the other person's vantage point, they often feel so much better that they don't think they need to do anything else. But it's important to make requests for change when you are not feeling stressed. So while this step does help you get into a more positive frame of mind, it doesn't take away the need to have a series of conversations to improve the relationship and get more of your needs met. The good news is that when you set your expectation that it will take a series of conversations to get the result you're looking for, it takes the pressure off any one individual conversation you have. Some of the trepidation many of us feel when we think about having crucial conversations is the fear that the talk won't work, or it might even backfire and make things worse. In the loving approach process, the reason you do so much upfront work related to lowering your stress and understanding the perspectives of others is so that when you get to the point of having conversations, they're much less likely to backfire. You have the clarity you need and you're feeling emotionally neutral, so when you request that people make changes in their behavior, they're far less likely to get defensive. One easy formula for making requests for behavior change is 3 steps. 1, acknowledge their perspective. 2, share your own experience using the when you, I feel, because I structure. And 3, make your request. Here are a couple of examples. I know that music relaxes you, and I completely respect that. But when you play music, I get stressed out because I have a hard time concentrating with background noise. Do you mind turning it down or wearing headphones? Or here's another example. I can only imagine how busy you are, and I know you have to prioritize. But when you don't respond to my emails in a day or two, I get worried because I want to do a good job for you, and it's the only barometer I have to assess how I'm doing. Is there an easy way for us to check in with each other on a regular basis? N stands for needs, because the most important key to lowering our stress in general is to get all our needs met. I'll share some exercises in an upcoming class that help you identify your unmet needs and get you started on getting them met. But in the short term, keep in mind that we all need to feel safe, loved, heard, and valued. And we all need space to be ourselves. Depending on how introverted or extroverted you are, stress is often a signal that you either need more space or you need more connection. If you're an introvert, make sure you have your own quiet place in your home and that you can get at least a few hours to yourself each day. Getting out in nature by yourself can also ground you. If you're feeling more isolated and need connection, you're not alone, and this is the time to reach out to friends and set up virtual meetings, phone calls, or even time together if it's possible. When I say grow, I'm referring to your personal growth. And what I mean specifically is self-discovery work to get more clarity on who you are, what you stand for, what matters to you in this world, and why you think and feel the way you do in different situations. As your self-awareness increases, you'll find it easier to get your needs met, so you're less triggered by others. And when challenging relationship situations come up, you'll feel more confident and effective when it comes to resolving them. Growth is also about mastering communication skills so that we listen better and have an easier time feeling heard. As we work on our own growth, our energy changes. We feel less stress and more confidence, and that's picked up by those around us. This is what leaders work on when they develop their leadership presence. It's what calms children down in a household and allows friends to get closer and work through issues without feeling so vulnerable. As you continue to engage with this program and try even some of the ideas here, you'll find yourself growing naturally, and every little bit of growing you do improves your relationships across the board. I've set up this program with a few introductory lessons where I share models and concepts that help you understand how people tick. Understanding what's going on behind the scenes when people get upset and having some tools and techniques under your belt will help you handle many of the relationship issues you encounter. But I also wanted to make this personal and applicable to what you might be experiencing. So at the end of each class, I'm asking each person to send me an email describing a relationship challenge or asking a question, and I'll use those questions and challenges to create new classes in the series. We'll also be doing live classes that you can participate on and directly ask questions. All you have to do is make sure you're on the email list, and you'll get the links set to the recorded classes and invitations to live webinars as we do them. So, since none of us will have time later, I'm going to ask you to open your email program now and write me an email. My address is here on the screen, nahid@coachnahid.com. You can make the subject relationship class. And then I'm only asking you two questions. The first one is, what was the most valuable thing you got out of the class today? And the second is, what is a challenge you're currently facing or a question or topic that you'd like to see me cover in an upcoming class? If you enjoyed this class, you're welcome to share it with anyone you'd like. In fact, I'd love the exposure, so please feel free to post it on social media and share what you loved about it. If you're watching this video because someone sent you the link and you're not yet on my email list, simply go to coachnahid.com and opt in when invited. Or you can request that I add you in your email to me. That way you'll get all of the other classes too. And finally, if you'd like coaching or more in-depth support when it comes to putting these tools and techniques into action, feel free to request a coaching consultation. We work with people individually, in small groups, and in organizations, so there's sure to be a format that works for you. Thanks for participating, and don't forget to send that email so I can be sure to address your specific issues. Take care, and see you next time.